All right. So hello, everyone, and welcome to Design Your Future, Gaining Experience as an Online Student. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jenna, and I'm an academic advisor here within the Sanford School. So I work with our undergraduate students in family and human development and also in sociology. And today we're going to dive into gaining experience as an online student. I know that this can feel like a heavy question of where do I even begin? And I have all these other responsibilities. And so hopefully today you'll feel a little bit more confident in kind of taking those next steps to be integrated not only into the ASU community, but just in confidence in what's next for you after ASU. So just as a refresher, this is your advising team. Like I mentioned, my name is Jenna. We also have Lisa and Kelly, who are our academic success advising coordinators, and then Denise and Jennifer as well. So hopefully some of these names look familiar to you. If not, it's probably a sign you should schedule an appointment. So you can do that through your My ASU as well. But yeah, come say hi, and we can certainly continue the conversation from there too if you have any questions. So what's the big idea? Today, we're going to dive into a couple different topics. I'm hoping that when you leave, you're going to feel much more confident in being able to identify some actionable steps to gain experience and get involved as an online student, to leverage your current and past experiences to showcase your competencies and skills for future opportunities, and then also just to understand the resources available to you as you prepare for what's next. So hopefully that sounds good to you. We're kind of going to knock these out one by one. And I should have said this at the beginning too, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, utilize the chat feature. Happy to help answer any questions along the way. So one of the questions we get asked frequently is, what can I be doing right now? And for accessibility, there's a GIF here from the show The Office, if you're an Office fan, with Michael Scott saying, and I knew exactly what to do, but in a much more real sense, I had no idea what to do, which how many of us have felt that way at some point, right? And so today, hopefully you'll have a little bit more of an idea, a little bit more clarity of where to start. My biggest piece of advice here is going to be to start with small goals. This does not need to happen all at once. I think sometimes we hop into these workshops and we leave with all of this information and it's like, okay, now what? So I want this to just be kind of a starting place for you to maybe pick one or two things that you can start to take action on and start there. So the three big ideas we're really going to highlight today are going to be the importance of building relationships with faculty members, getting involved exactly where you are, and then just the importance of starting early and planning ahead. So with that in mind, let's dive into building relationships with faculty. And this is huge. There are so many advantages to building relationships with faculty, but especially when it comes to gaining experience and being supported by your faculty in your future endeavors and goals and things like that. This is one of the most important things that you can do is to build relationships, develop a rapport with your instructors. So of course, there are more than just four advantages here, but I just highlight a few. So one is obviously that it's going to help you to be more successful in the course. You're more invested in the course. I feel like you're a little bit more willing to engage and feel like you're really a part of a community when you feel like you know the people who are in that community. It also increases your sense of belonging at ASU. I myself am an ASU online student, and I know just the opportunities I've had as a student to get to know the instructor, to be in a Zoom meeting with the instructor, to understand their interests and kind of their career path. It helps me feel like I'm a little bit more involved in the course. I have more invested into the course too, and knowing that this is the person who's seeing my work, this is the person who I know I can go to with questions when I feel like I've developed that rapport. So it really helps with that sense of belonging too, and feeling like ASU is just existing over here, right? It also opens up opportunities to support research or serve as a teaching assistant down the road. So especially as you're looking to gain experience, if you're hoping to get involved in research or serve as a TA at some point, that's going to be working with your instructors, right? And so when the time comes, it's going to help if some of these instructors kind of already know who you are from you being in their classes, you being engaged and involved and vocal in their classes, right? And so it's definitely not a bad idea to start building those relationships early, knowing that down the road, it could be a future opportunity, right? If you were to apply for a research opportunity or want to reach out for an opportunity, to know that you've already developed that rapport is going to help ease some of that anxiety too that might exist. And then, of course, one of the most common reasons that you could benefit from building relationships with faculty would be that they serve as references, especially if you're someone who is considering graduate school after you finish your undergraduate degree. Having an academic reference is vital. And if you have not built rapport or relationships with any of your faculty members, it's going to be really hard to reach out to someone and ask them to speak on your behalf of your potential, your capabilities, you as a person, you as a student, right? So those are the things that are really important as you start to get to know faculty members, that when you start to apply for grad school, you can think, oh, I have a really good relationship with this person. I'm going to ask them to serve as a reference. So those are just a few of the advantages. Now I know, we can talk about the benefits all day long, but let's get to well, how do I do that? Because I know sometimes this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and everybody is comfortable with different things, right? We all start somewhere. So this probably goes without saying, but the first piece of advice here is just going to be participate. Participate in the course. Submit your assignments. Send messages to the instructor as you have them, or to the TAs in the class. Start conversations. I actually reached out to one of our instructors here in the Sanford School to get her opinion too on this topic. Like, what is one thing that students do that help you to remember who they are? And her piece of advice was to be active in the community forum, answer and respond to each other. Now, a lot of times instructors aren't active in the community forum. It's more so a space for you and students to engage with each other, but that doesn't mean that the instructor's not paying attention, right? And so be engaged in the class. Answer questions to your classmates. Be professional in how you answer questions to your classmates, right? Show that you're engaged, you're invested in the course, you're interested in the content, and you want to serve as a resource. You want to help. Also, ask questions. That's what the community forum is there for. So somebody is going to be able to really help build that community too by answering your question. So it kind of goes both ways. Don't be an active bystander in your education, or I guess not active. Don't be a bystander, be an active participant in your education. Another easy thing that you can do is just introduce yourself in the beginning of the class. This could be an email. This could be through a Canvas message. Just saying, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm in this class. I'm really looking forward to learning about X, Y, and Z. Something like that. Something positive, something showing that you are expressing interest, right? That can be a great way to just kind of get the ball rolling and help you feel a little bit more invested in the course. Now, another great piece of advice I would give to you is to reach out for a Zoom meeting. A lot of times when you're in online classes, instructors don't have set aside office hours, right? It's just kind of like, reach out if you need anything. This is the perfect opportunity to just reach out and say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, or whatever your instructor's name is, and just say, I would love to meet with you over Zoom to chat about what I'm excited about in this course, ask questions, and you can even talk to them about your future. Instructors love hearing about that kind of stuff. I mean, especially if you're looking to go into an industry that's related to the content of that course in some capacity, instructors want to see you be successful. And so never hesitate to reach out and ask for a quick little Zoom meeting just to get to know your instructor more, and to even ask them about, their career journey, what led them into their career path and things like that. So it doesn't have to be as scary as it might seem. All of our instructors are really nice. And then, of course, you want to be respectful and courteous in all communication. Now, of course, this should go without saying, but especially in our community forums and when you're responding to classmates' assignments online, faculty see that, instructors see that. And so make sure that you are always putting your best foot forward. and presenting yourself as a professional. Because while you are a student, this is also you kind of creating your professional brand as a student at ASU. And so keep that in mind. Instructors do see how you engage and interact and talk to each other within the Canvas course and beyond that. So just be aware of that. And then, of course, use professional email etiquette. I cannot emphasize this enough. This goes a long way. When you don't have the opportunity to speak to someone face to face about an opportunity, about a question that you have, you want to make sure that you are presenting yourself as professionally as you possibly can. And that creates a good image for you, right? If you are someone who is constantly sending off emails to your professor at midnight asking for extensions and not including greetings, your emails are just kind of all over the place, that's reflecting on you as a professional, right? And so be really intentional to make sure you include those greeting headlines, check your grammar, check your spelling, include a signature, all of that. And that's a very simple way to just create a professional brand for yourself just through one communication with your instructor. So don't underestimate how far that goes in creating a reputation for yourself. Any questions about building relationships with faculty before we move on? Okay. Yeah, this really doesn't need to be hard. I think it's one of those things, you're in multiple classes at a time and it can be easy to just like get your head down and get to work because we want to get the degree. But really try and make the most of your time as a student here. Build those relationships, invest in community here because it's going to make your experience so much more fruitful. So now kind of moving on to the second topic here of how do I actually gain experience as an online student? I get this question a lot. And the reality is you have so many opportunities right where you are. So of course, research. You are still able to partner with our instructors in research, even as an online student. Those opportunities do exist. And you'll find out about them through our website, which we'll chat about, but also just through developing relationships with faculty. You'll be able to reach out to them and ask about opportunities that they might have, or if they know of anyone who has research opportunities and they're looking for an online student to help them with it. So don't discount that. Professional organizations are also another great way to be getting involved. Now, these can exist within ASU. These can also exist outside of ASU. So depending on the industry that you're hoping to go into, start researching maybe some national organizations that you can start receiving newsletters from, staying up to date with, just to get a little bit more involved into the industry that you're either in or hoping to move into. Volunteer experience is still extremely valuable experience. I've certainly worked with employers who love to see when students volunteer for multiple reasons. One, it shows that there is a selflessness to you, that you care about people and that you care about serving your community. And especially in the industries that a lot of our students chose to go into, this is really important, right? Most of our students choose a major within the Sanford School because they want to help people. And so having that volunteer experience can really help to boost your resume and prepare you for what's next. And these experiences exist anywhere you live. So look around in your community and try and find opportunities to get involved if your time allows. Now, job shadowing is another great opportunity. If you're thinking about, working in nonprofit or wanting to get into the social welfare world, obviously there can be some limitations, some sensitive information, things like that. But do what you can to start shadowing opportunities if the opportunity presents itself, right? If you have the time in your schedule or even in your current place of work, if there's someone who's doing something that you might be interested in, see if you could shadow them for a couple hours or for a day. And again, that's just growing your network and helping you clarify your career path too. It's still contributing to your experience. Now, of course, part-time and full-time jobs. I know one thing with our online students is many of you have commitments outside of only being a student. You have families, you're working. And so know that if you are working, whether it's part-time or full-time, that experience is valuable. That experience is going to help to propel you into what is next for you. If you're getting this degree to move into a certain industry to elevate you where you are, the current experience you have is still extremely valuable. I know sometimes I meet with students who think that, well, I'm not exactly working in this field. That's okay. You have transferable skills, and we're going to chat about those too. But if you're someone who's not working, think about how can I get involved here? What else can I do? Or how can I create time in my schedule to start gaining this experience, whether that be through a full-time or part-time job, or other opportunities that we discussed here. Course projects are another great way to get involved here. So if you're in a course and you have a group project or you have more of a long-term project that you're working on, you can include this as experience too, because you are spending time and energy to learn and educate yourself about a specific topic, right? And so if it's research, if it's, I mean, it could really be anything. You can figure out how to elevate that to be an experience that you can speak to, just to show your education and show your qualifications for the next opportunity. Of course, internships and study abroad are available to our online students as well. Now, I know these are not realistic for everybody. If you are working full-time and you also have 3 little kids running around, study abroad might not be a realistic opportunity. And so I think that's where we have to think about what is going to work with my schedule and my circumstances now, because there's certainly still ways for you to get valuable experience. And then, of course, teaching assistants, which we've already kind of touched on, but that's a great way, again, to develop your relationship with faculty members and gain a little bit more experience. Especially, this can be really helpful if you're interested in teaching or education in any capacity. Any questions about these before we move on? All right, let's see. We do have one. So outside of the virtual career fair, what other resources are available to help online students in finding work, including work outside of the United States? This is a great question. Yes, so career services specifically has a lot of resources available to help you with this. So of course, the virtual career fair, but there are events being hosted by them all the time, where you can network with employers all over the world. They're constantly building new employer partnerships to really create more opportunities for our students that are living everywhere. So I would say checking out some of those other events and networking events within Handshake is going to be a great place to start outside of the virtual career fair. Handshake also has job and internship opportunities all over the world. And that is something that is continuously growing. I know the career services team is very committed to growing their presence and developing more partnerships abroad. And so that's something that's always evolving, but I would say Handshake is a great place to start, both for events, but also for job and internship searching. We're also going to look at a few other resources that could be helpful a little later in this presentation. I would say those two are great places to start. And then just to touch on one real quickly about working abroad, there's a resource called InnerStride that you have access to through career services, and I'll show you that on their website as well. Oops, let me pull that up. So here's their website, and then if we go under career resources, there's actually a whole section on working internationally. And I would say InnerStride here, you'll basically just log in, and it allows you, based on visas or the countries that you're wanting to move to, tons of resources for you to kind of peruse through, see what opportunities exist, learn more about working in that country, things like that. Now, I would say meeting with a career advisor is going to be really, really helpful here too. So if that is something that you're considering, keep that in mind. And we'll chat about career services more in this presentation too. So hopefully that's a helpful start. All right. Good. Okay, I'm glad that's helpful. Perfect. All right, so next we're going to chat about how do I find experiences. And this segues perfectly into what we were just talking about, actually. So using those job searching platforms, LinkedIn, of course, is highly, highly used. So definitely start searching on LinkedIn when the time comes. Indeed is also really helpful. I think most people have heard of Indeed. Just make sure when you're using some of these more broad websites like LinkedIn and Indeed, use your best judgment. If something seems fishy to you, take note of that. You can always reach out to career services too if there's an opportunity that you're interested in, but you're not sure if it's legit or if something seems off about it. They are the pros. They can help you figure out if it's real or not. LinkedIn and Indeed, they're pretty good at vetting through those opportunities, but sometimes they come through. But those are great places to start. Handshake, like I mentioned, you have access to this. This is the platform that ASU uses for all of their students. Very simple. If you've not logged in already, you'll just log in and activate your account through using your ASU Right and password. And it'll ask you a bunch of questions that you'll kind of have to go through. Don't be overwhelmed by that, because once you get to the other side, it'll be really helpful. But you'll be able to see upcoming events that could be of interest to you. Like this event today was actually shared in Handshake. So some of you might have found out about the event through there. And then also Idealist. If you're somebody who's interested in those social impact opportunities, Idealist is a great place to start looking. And so you can look for jobs, you can look for internships, you can look for volunteer opportunities, organizations, you can put in your location. And so this is perfect for our students who are located anywhere. They have tons of really great articles and resources on here too. So I would just recommend checking out this website in general. Now, I know I have a lot of things linked in here, and I did this intentionally. So for those of you who are attending, I have your emails from the registration, and after this workshop, I will send out this presentation for you. So you can review and peruse through the links that I've provided in more detail as well, because I know we don't have all the time in the world to go through them today. So just know that you'll have this information too. You can also look up relevant organizations or companies in your area. Volunteer Match is a great way to start looking at volunteer opportunities. You can do this anywhere. So that's a great place to start. Of course, job shadowing, internships, networking can never devalue those things. They're really important. I was actually just talking to a colleague from Career Services the other day, and they were telling me that the data is showing more and more, especially since the beginning of the pandemic, that networking is how most of our students are securing jobs and internships, both during school and post-grad. And so networking is huge. It was huge before the pandemic, but it's even bigger now. So if you are not already networking, start thinking about where can I start networking right where I am, in my city, in my town. How can I start building those connections exactly where I am? And even online, LinkedIn is a great place to start networking. And then of course, you can check the Sanford School's website. Now, this is updated pretty regularly. You can check out some undergraduate research opportunities and also some centers and initiatives. These could be great things just to know that they exist too. And especially those research opportunities, just to keep an eye on regularly, especially if you're someone who's interested in research. All right. So now we're kind of going to move into the third segment of this workshop, and that is to start early and plan ahead. And so ultimately, when you graduate, we've got two options. I mean, unless you're staying put where you are in your current job, that would be option number 3. But we're specifically going to be chatting about, okay, the plan is to move. So what do we want to do? Where do we go next? So of course, graduate school is one option, or finding a job. Now, I want you to know you don't have to have this figured out right now. I don't need you in this workshop today to know, yes, graduate school, or no, I want to go straight into the workforce, or make a shift in the workforce, right? But I want you to know that earlier you start thinking about these things, the less overwhelming it will be, and the more prepared you will feel. So just keep that in mind. We're going to talk about both of these pathways and some things that you can be doing just to be preparing for what's next. So first, let's talk about preparing for a job. What are some very basic things that you need to know if you're considering a job after school, or even right now, if you're looking to find a new job or get promoted, something like that? So first things first is going to be resumes. Most people have heard of a resume, but I want you to know there are tons of resources, again, through Career Services that are here to support you. Resume Dropbox being one of them. So if you're not familiar with Resume Dropbox, basically what you do is you'll go in, fill out a form, You can include the opportunity that you're applying for, or if you just want a general resume review, you can do that too. You'll upload your document, send it off, and then usually within 3 to 5 business days, someone from Career Services will actually give you feedback on your resume, send it back to you. It's a great, easy way for you to get feedback very, very easily. So that's an option, or also through appointments. Appointments are also through Handshake, and I know these can be a little tricky to find. So let me show you where you can find these. Because Handshake's a great resource, but there's a ton on here, and so I know it's easy to get lost. So when you log in, after you've kind of answered all of their questions, this is what it's going to look like. So you can attend an event, or if you come up here to Career Center and choose this option, it's going to show you all kinds of things that you have access to. Now, to schedule an appointment, you'll want to click Appointments, schedule a new appointment, and then you'll choose All Students. And then you'll kind of pick what it is that you're wanting to talk about. So maybe we want to chat about reviewing or creating a resume or cover letter. This would be the one that we choose. And then it's going to show us all of the availability starting next week to schedule an appointment and meet with someone to discuss your resume. So once you know where to find it, it's an easy process. So don't let the navigation kind of discourage you from taking advantage of this resource. All right, let's see. Perfect. Okay, and thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer mentioned that there's a webinar next week, a resume workshop for undergrad social students as well. Yes, there is. That is, yeah, great timing. So actually, let's see here. I believe it's happening because I saved it as well. That's going to be happening on Wednesday the 2nd from 12 to 1 Mountain Standard Time. So if you want to attend that, check your emails, and then it's also probably going to be in Handshake. So yeah, great point. All right, and then cover letters too. I know cover letters can be really daunting. So I would say maybe attempt a cover letter before you're writing one for the first time, just so you feel a little bit more comfortable with the process. But Career Services also has some great samples that you can kind of base yours off of, and how-to guides too. So definitely a great place to start. And then of course, references. References are going to be key to finding a job. You want to make sure that you have people in your corner who are willing to serve as a reference for you. They also have a really great handout, tips for success when it comes for references. If you don't know how to ask for a reference, how soon to ask for a reference, how to follow up, things like that, it walks you through all of that. So those are just 3 big ticket items to pay attention to if you're preparing for a job. And then just a few helpful tips here. Just to kind of expectation set with you, the average job search takes 5 to 9 months. Even with the pandemic, I mean, things have been up and down, but it takes time. So if you're 3 to 4 months in, don't get discouraged. Jobs don't necessarily happen overnight. Sometimes they do, but also give yourself grace and just make sure that you're being very targeted and intentional with your applications. And then you also want to make sure that you're connecting your current experiences to the opportunity that you're applying for. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit too, because I know that this can be very confusing for some of our online students. So what I did here is I found a job in the mental health field, because I know that that's a big interest for a lot of our students, in Handshake actually. And I pulled some of the bullet points that were listed on that job description to kind of work through today. So when you're looking for a job, especially if you don't feel like you have related experience, this is going to be really important. So some of the things that they said within this specific job posting was that the ideal candidate will be flexible to move and collaborate with team members, will be familiar with filing mental health petitions or willing to learn, enjoy collaborating autonomously as well as collaborating with team members, and then be able to thrive in unpredictable situations and have strong judgment skills in complex scenarios. So I added the bold emphasis into these, but that's pretty much what you're going to do. You're going to go through these job descriptions and you're going to look for those keywords that stand out to you as skills, characteristics, or attributes that employer is looking for. And then in order to connect your experiences to that position and be really, really targeted in your application, you're going to think about, okay, how have I been flexible and collaborative? Because those are two things they're looking for. How have I shown initiative to learn a new skill? How have I worked autonomously? How have I shown strong judgment skills? So as you'll notice, these things that they're looking for are not industry specific. And so this is where it's going to be really important for you to connect your current experiences with this opportunity that you're hoping to move into. Now, I know a lot of our students are already working, and I constantly hear, well, my job's not exactly related to my career path, what I want to do. It's not related to my major. That's okay. Your experience is still valuable. And this is kind of how you create that bridge to the next step, is using your education and your current job experiences to really showcase the skills that you'll be bringing with you into a new opportunity. So this would be step one. Now, I know we have two populations of students, especially that we have a lot of, right? And so I want to make sure that I'm speaking to you directly too. So if you are a stay-at-home parent, I want you to think about these same things, because your experience, even as a stay-at-home parent, is still valuable and is still something that you should be including on your resume. So I want you to think about, how have you been flexible and collaborative as a stay-at-home mom, as a stay-at-home dad? How have you shown initiative to learn something new? How have you managed your time well, right? That's a huge one, time management. How have you worked autonomously? How have you exhibited strong judgment skills? And especially if this is a population that you identify with, I've linked an article here that's actually shared by Indeed that goes through resume samples and tips and how to talk about your experience as a stay-at-home parent. So if this is you, I would highly recommend, once I send out this workshop, to review this article. Hopefully it'll feel really empowering, but hopefully you'll really feel like you have some of those action steps too to put together a really awesome professional resume. All right, perfect. So another one that I do want to chat about is also our Starbucks students, because I know we have quite a few Starbucks scholars in our programs too. And again, sometimes we get that question, I'm a barista, but I want to be working with kids. Like, I don't currently work with kids. How do I connect the dots here? And again, your education is going to be a huge key piece in this, and how you showcase your education on your resume. But also think about, how have I shown that I am flexible and collaborative as a barista? And I know you are. How do you show that you are, or how are you showing initiative or learning a new skill through your experience as a Starbucks employee? How have you worked autonomously? How have you exhibited strong judgment skills? Think about your Starbucks experience through this lens, and how you can really show the skills that you have gained and developed through not only working, but also being a student. That takes a lot of time management too. And so don't sell yourself short. Really think about the skills that you've gained through that experience, and then connect the dots to that opportunity you're looking at. Hopefully that helps provide a little bit of clarity of, how do I draw the connection between where I'm at and where I want to be. Any questions before we move on? All right, perfect. So again, just a couple more things I want to draw out here. What you need to know. It's helpful, the earlier you start, the easier it's going to make the process. So start looking at opportunities now that you are thinking about, so that you know what skills, education, or experience you'll still need to obtain. So for example, sometimes I meet with students that are like set on becoming a therapist. They really want to be a counselor and work with kids and, so forth. Well, if you haven't done your research, you're not going to know that becoming a counselor requires graduate school, right? And so start doing some of that research ahead of time. Even start thinking about, okay, well, what type of counselor do I want to be, right? It's never too early to start asking those questions. One resource that I think is really helpful, especially if you're early on in that exploration process, is called Occupational Outlook Handbook. And this is actually a resource through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but you can type in any occupation. So I'll continue with the counselor example here. And you'll see there's substance abuse, behavioral disorder, mental health counselors, school and career counselors, psychologists, community social service occupations. It's going to show you all kinds of things, marriage and family therapists. So let's look at this one, for example. It's going to walk you through just a summary of information, what they do, the work environment. Specifically, one thing that's going to be really important is the how to become one. To know, do I need grad school? Do I need certain licenses or certifications, right? So this is really going to walk you through things that you should be thinking about, skills that you need to be either developing or prepared to gain throughout your time as a student and beyond. So really helpful resource, especially if you're just starting to ask yourself these questions. All right, and then also invite people into the process with you. I know sometimes as an online student, it can be really easy to just put your head down in your work, get the grade and move on because you want the degree, but take advantage of the people who are here to support you. Take advantage of the career advisors who are here to help you with grad school, with job searching, with knowing how to talk to people at career fairs, right? They can help you with all of that. Take advantage of your academic advisors. You know, we have a wide knowledge of classes that you can take that might align with your interest, of minors that could potentially add to your career or add to your educational goals, right? Or we can always connect you with someone who can help answer those questions too. So take advantage of the people who are here to support you. And then, of course, look into finding a mentor. If you don't have a mentor already, great place to just kind of bounce ideas off of and have somebody to kind of be in your corner and support you as you go through it. And then, of course, faculty. I know I've mentioned faculty so many times, but you cannot undervalue the relationships that you build with your faculty. All right, so now we're going to transition into kind of the other side of that coin if you're preparing for graduate school. So what do you need to know? And I'm going to challenge you to really think about, why do you want to go to graduate school? You know, I meet with students so many times who are like, I need to go to grad school. And I'm like, okay, why? And they're just like, because they don't know why, they don't know what program they want to do. And those are questions that you need to have figured out before you commit yourself to additional education. And so I would say this article is a great place to start. This is actually through Idealist, which is that social impact website I mentioned earlier. And this gives you 5 good reasons. So maybe it's necessary for what you want to do. If you want to be a marriage and family therapist, you need to go to grad school. Maybe you want to improve your current job situation. Maybe you'll make more money if you have a graduate degree, or maybe it'll allow you to elevate and be promoted. Maybe it increases your opportunities, your options, your prospects, right? And so start thinking about, why do I want to go to grad school? That should be the first question you ask before anything else. So that's a really helpful article. If you've kind of asked yourself all those questions, you know why you want to go to grad school. Then again, resumes, of course. Same rule applies here. Definitely have your resume reviewed. Personal statements are a huge piece of this too. So this is kind of the other side of the coin. Cover letters are for jobs. Personal statements are for graduate school. Personal statements are much more personal than a cover letter. Cover letter tends to be more professional, whereas a personal statement is your opportunity to tell your story. And so there's a great resource, How to Write a Statement of Purpose, that you can peruse through to really give you some guidance there. And then recommendations. So again, another great resource on how to request a letter of recommendation. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but if you're someone who is considering graduate school, you are going to need an academic recommendation. So make sure that you are building relationships with your instructors, because you don't want to be that student who reaches out to a student, or excuse me, that reaches out to an instructor that you never talk to. The instructor then gets this request for a recommendation and they don't even remember having you in their class, right? And so you want somebody that's going to be able to speak to your ability to excel in graduate school and things like that. And so the more you know someone, the more they're going to be able to speak specifically to who you are as a student and the potential you have in that profession. Some other things to kind of keep in mind with graduate school, sometimes there's standardized testing like the GRE. Now, I've noticed over the years that that is becoming less and less of a requirement because it tends to be a barrier of entry for a lot of our students because of the cost or whatever reason. Some schools still do require standardized testing, but fortunately, ASU has a partnership with the Princeton Review. So if you are looking at programs that require you to take the GRE or some other entrance exam, take advantage of the free online test prep. You can read more about that here too. And then, of course, preparing your timeline. So you can't just decide to go to grad school and then think that you're going to get in the next semester. Some programs work like that, most programs do not. And so start planning ahead. If you're thinking that you want to go to grad school starting in fall of 2023, now is really the time to start thinking about, okay, I need to start doing my research. I need to start identifying programs. I need to start preparing for these standardized tests if they're required, things like that. And then just some helpful tips here. Be knowledgeable about program admission cycles, specifically for some of the graduate programs within the Sanford School, they have fall admission cycles. And so be aware of that. Be aware of deadlines if you're wanting to start in the fall, right? And they tend to be a little bit earlier, sometimes than undergraduate cycles. And then also know that a 3.0 GPA is the general standard to be competitive. It's not to say that you won't get into grad school with less than that, but your chances are going to be significantly lower. So you really want to make sure that you maintain a strong GPA. And know that this can be higher too, depending on the program. Some programs you're considered competitive with a 3.5. So really start to think about, am I on track to move into the program that I'm hoping to? And then a conversation I often have too is be cautious of your E grades and your W grades. 1 or 2 is not going to, dismiss you from being competitive in the graduate application cycle, but we don't want to make a pattern of it. Especially with those withdrawals, we don't want to see those every semester. And so use them sparingly as needed, life happens, but also don't be surprised if as you're applying to programs, people start to ask questions, make sure that you have an answer. So just be aware of those things. We don't want to make them a habit. All right, and then lastly, what are my next steps? So I know I've given you a lot of information today as far as, building relationships with faculty, gaining experience, connecting your experiences, and then kind of preparing for what's next for me. So take some time to process and then think about scheduling an appointment with us. Like if you have an idea of, okay, maybe this is the direction I want to go in, meet with us. We can talk through maybe some classes that would align with your career goals or, recommend minors or certificates that might kind of add to your education a little bit. We can also provide some resources for some of that career exploration, but career services is also going to be really helpful in that regard too. So just think about what is a small action step that I can take next. Whether that be meeting with us, meeting with them, reviewing some of the links that I've provided here, and then take advantage of these online resources. There are so many, not only on the Sanford School website, but also here, I'll just show you briefly on the Career Services website. I mean, they have sections on career interest in planning, working internationally, networking and professional connections. Of course, LinkedIn is a great place to network. The ASU Mentor Network is wonderful. It is filled with our instructors, our staff, our faculty, ASU students, and ASU alum who are looking for mentors. So if that is something that's of interest to you, highly recommend checking out the Mentor Network. Again, you'll just log in with your ASU right and password. It's very easy. So that's a great one. Grad school test prep, of course, can be found here. Resumes and application materials. You can even do interview practicing. And then, of course, downloadable resources. So this page I go to all the time. If you've worked with me before, I've probably sent you a PDF from here. But there's a ton of resources on interviewing and networking, resumes and cover letters. You can find them for just about anything. If you're a student with not a lot of experience yet, this early career cover letter sample might be helpful to you. There's also a more professional or elevated sample cover letter that you can look to, and then a ton of graduate school preparation resources too. So know that these resources exist. Know that this is where you can find them, and you have a team of people who are here to support you as you kind of figure out what's next for you. All right, we've got a couple minutes left. So do you all have any questions that I can help answer or anything that I can provide clarification on?
May I ask a question with audio, or would you prefer the message?
No, this is fine. Yeah.
So I actually initially started at ASU online through the Starbucks scholarship program when I was living in California, and I worked for Starbucks for almost a year. But then I moved out to Texas, and so my income dropped significantly. So I actually cannot afford to work at Starbucks anymore. And I've been on Indeed for a month of Sundays, and I'm like sending out resumes and I had a friend of mine who a couple friends of mine who are in the psychology field, and I've had them look over my resume and they say it's okay. And so I see that you have that resume Dropbox for us to send in for people to overlook. But what would you say about work in the meanwhile? Because I really want to work in my desired field, which is psychology, and work with kids and whatnot, but I'm kind of I'm not getting no's per se, but I am I don't want to say dead ends either, but I'm still haven't been like offered a job, and I'm like, okay, God, like what's the lesson in this? Like, what can I do? And so I know that this is another resource, which is, I'm so sorry I attended late. But what would you say that I could just keep doing? I mean, I'm sending out resumes, and it's hard because I'm not quite showing my face because these resumes are being sent to like people are reaching out from online through Handshake and whatnot, but these aren't actual locations I can drive to and then like follow through. Like, what would be your recommendation on all that? Sorry, I asked a lot.
Yeah, no, you're totally fine. I know that's a little tricky. So definitely get feedback on your resume, because we want to make sure that it's not your resume that's kind of hindering you. And when you submit that, or if you schedule an appointment, whichever avenue you choose to go, they're going to be able to give you very specific feedback as to what's missing, especially if you tell them, this is my goal, this is what I'm trying to do. One thing that I would do now, if you have the time, if you're not able to meet with someone, is to go through your resume and see, am I using their language? Because as much as we don't love this, a lot of places, especially if they're getting tons and tons of applications, they're still going through a system that is counting up those keywords. And so you want to make sure that you are using, or you're mirroring the language that they use in their mission statement, on their website, in their job posting. Because the more of that language that you use, the more that they're more likely to see your document, because it's going to be very closely tailored to what they're looking for, versus just sending out mass applications without tailoring them at all. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So I would say that is one thing you can do. And if you haven't submitted cover letters, I always recommend submitting a cover letter. I know it's an extra step, but I always say, best case scenario, it's going to get you that interview, because not everybody's submitting cover letters. And worst case, it's just not even read. And so sometimes submitting a cover letter allows you to elaborate on your experiences a little bit more, excuse me, and connect the bridge, or draw the dots, or what am I saying? Connect the dots, draw the bridge for them between your Starbucks experience and what you're looking to do. Because sometimes looking at a resume, employers can't make that connection. You know, they'll see that you work at Starbucks, they'll see your experience, but they're not thinking, how is this related to what we're doing, right? And so in a cover letter, you're able to show them in a little bit more detail, these are the skills that I'm bringing with me that is going to make me successful in this position. And so that's one way that you can really elevate your application to and tailor it more specifically to that opportunity.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna be honest. I've never done a cover letter because, like you said, it is kind of daunting. So I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like, but I'm okay. Showing the relevant skills and experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
And they
is that,
are, they,
yes,
it's,
ma'am.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Mhm.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's a style of writing that most of us are not used to. It takes practice. It's like working out. The more you like work it out, the stronger and more natural it'll become. And so specifically on here, sample cover letter, this kind of gives you a good breakdown of formatting what it should look like.
Okay.
And then this one is actually written to a specific job, so you can see what makes a strong cover letter. And then feel free to just kind of take the concepts that are used here and mirror them for your own too. They're only a page, excuse me, so it doesn't have to be, this super long thing. This resource too, the checklist for effective resumes and cover letters, also really helpful. On this second page, it kind of gives you more of a checkbox list to see, have I covered these things? So this could be a really helpful resource to start with too, as you start, piecing it together.
Yes, ma'am. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and link this in the chat too. But yeah, stay in touch. Stay in touch with us. Stay in touch with Career Services too. We are gonna help you get a job.
Thank you so much, Miss Jenna. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, and then let's see. How do you build relationship with professors when they have hundreds of students? How do you suggest standing out? Yeah, that is a great question, especially in those huge classes, maybe where there's TAs or something like that. One of the most simple ways is just going to be emailing your professor and saying, I'm so and so in your this class, and I just wanted to introduce myself and share why I'm excited about this class. Would you be open to, meeting over Zoom or something? I'd love to hear more about your professional journey, or I'd love to hear more about, something that you're genuinely interested in. I think instructors are more likely and more willing to create time and space for students who are actively engaged and wanting to get to know them. Because, as an instructor, I'm not going to reach out to the 300 students in my class and try and build relationships with all of them. But if I have a few here and there that are reaching out, wanting to get to know me, I'm going to reciprocate that effort. And so I think even just a simple email, just asking to chat over the phone or chat over Zoom, or even to just provide that introduction and express your interest and excitement for the course, is going to bring a smile to their face, but it's also going to kind of help to start to build that connection. And then when they respond to you, you can kind of decide from there, do I want to reach out and ask for a meeting? Should we just continue talking over email, and kind of gauge it from that perspective too? Yeah, I hope that helps. Perfect. And then there was another question. Does ASU allow for a student who graduates with a BS in sociology to apply to the MBA online program? Or are we only allowed to pursue a master's in our undergraduate subjects as online students? You can do whatever you want. If you want to pursue an MBA, go for the MBA. I will say, specifically for MBAs, they do like if you have some professional experience under your belt before going to graduate school, because sometimes in the business world, you end up overeducated and underexperienced. So business, that industry is a little bit trickier. If you are interested in that, it's never too early to reach out to their program coordinator though, just to learn more about the program, to learn what makes you a competitive applicant. What helps applicants to stand out? How many years of professional experience do they have before applying? That's not to say that you can't get in as a fresh undergrad or as a fresh graduate from undergrad. But I know typically the industry standard for business is that you work a little bit and then come back to get your MBA, because that's going to help elevate and again, kind of provide more opportunity for you down the road. But you are definitely not limited to just sociology. You can do just about anything. Perfect. And the nice thing about sociology too, and family and human development really, is they're both very transferable degrees. The skills and education that you gain from these degrees, liberal arts degrees are becoming increasingly valuable. because they are so transferable. You don't have a super niche specific skill set. You have a skill set that is going to transcend industries and disciplines. And so it really is elevating you with a different education and mentality that a lot of other students aren't going to have. So big pride in that. All right, and then let's see here. Okay, I'm taking upper div electives and related classes, but I want my master's wait, I think I wrote this wrong. Oh, I see. Okay. I'm taking my upper division electives and related classes to what I want my master's in to build references in the field. Perfect. That's so smart. Yeah. So that's another great way to do it too. If you have elective credit, start taking electives in those career paths that you're interested in. Because yeah, you're building relationships, you're networking, you're also kind of solidifying the desire you have to work in that field. And so I would even say those are great instructors to also get to know, even though you're not necessarily in their department or because you're, this major. If you're expressing interest in that career path, they're going to be really excited to have somebody who's maybe not necessarily in their world yet or in that kind of major career path right there, to chat with you about, I see you're studying this. Why are you interested in this? And so that's a great conversation starter too, if you start building relationships with those instructors. Wonderful. All right, I know we are just about out of time here. We've got 1 more minute left. Are there any questions that you all are just waiting to ask? All right. Well, I'll go ahead and put my contact. Well, actually, I was going to send you my contact, but I will actually email all of you with this presentation with all of the links included. If you have any other questions that come up, feel free to reach out. I am more than happy to help. And yeah, I just want to thank you all so much for attending today and for being engaged and asking questions. I hope that it was helpful and that you feel like you have some next steps prepared for you. And yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Jenna.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. You too.